Hi again, everyone. So, back for session 2 on Network Field Day 29, day 1 was Opengear. And I have no notes for the Opengear conversation because I've talked with them a lot at earlier field days, at Tech Field Day Extra at Cisco Live. I had a good conversation with them in the room. Afterwards, I actually went up to the booth and talked with them a little bit more. And it's hard to say something new about Open Gear that I've not already said. And I still place them at the top when it comes to out of band connectivity and networking. The improvements that they've made on their platforms, like in terms of bringing cellular connectivity into the platform where you don't have to use a cradle point anymore. The ability, their Lighthouse platform that gives you sort of that central management point is nice. There were definitely some criticisms in the room on that platform and the GUI overall, which I honestly I can't say that I've had those same experiences, but I will also admit that I've not used Open Gear probably as widely as some of the other delegates have. There was somebody who was basically an MSP, and they said that they've struggled a bit with Open Gear at scale, and that's just a scale that I don't operate at. So maybe there are some gripes in there that make more sense from their standpoint, but from mine, again, I've never encountered them. And the first presentation was basically just a rundown of Open Gear in general. And as part of that, I like that they've started to include some of that Docker conversation just as part of the regular sales deck. Like that's no longer, I don't want to say that's not new, but when they started doing it, that was almost a presentation on its own. It was here's how you know Open Gear. Here's some of the things we've done. Presentation 2, here's what we're doing with the Docker and the programmatic bits. So I definitely like that they've started to just blend that into the overall here's who we are, here's what we do messaging. Now, the second presentation, it was a demo. And there were 2 demos in there, and one I liked and one I didn't like. So and this is feedback that I gave them in the room, just a little peek behind the curtain to the field day events. So there's the main presentation that gets streamed to everyone, and then there's a closed session where we get to have a little more direct conversation with the presenters, and sometimes you hold back a little bit in those on-camera conversations, and then you can be a little more raw in the off-camera or the non-streamed conversations. And I'll wrap back around to that for just a second. So the first use case, actually, I'm gonna start with the second use case, was an event where you have an engineer who needs to run a test. I think it was an iPerf test from one location to another. And as a network engineer, you will find that you don't always have compute capability at a remote site. So if it's a small retail outlet, so let's say you're in retail and your smaller stores, maybe they may not have servers on site to where you can launch an iPerf service and run against that, or a client that you can SSH to and perform some client-based troubleshooting and things like that. So the idea that Opengear can give you this device, put it at a branch at a remote location, and an engineer can utilize that. I just love that concept. Too many times, and when I was in healthcare, you would have a doctor's office, small doctor's office. There's no file server, print server, anything like that. It's just a couple of computers, maybe a router and a switch if it's not some kind of combo unit, and an access point. But that doesn't mean that you still don't need to have something that you can control, that you can run a basic operating system on that you can run, get a bash shell and do some Linuxy stuff. So that was cool. I really liked that about the second use case, the second scenario. The first one I did not like, and I let them know that in the closed session, and I'm talking about it now because I really hope that this is a message that they hear. So the first use case that they gave us was essentially, it was somebody can't ping, and here's a way that you can leverage this Opengear device at a facility to enable like a desktop person or a help desk person, a service desk person, to help them troubleshoot it. And it felt more, it felt extra. It just felt like there was, it didn't feel like a good scenario. It just didn't really comport with how I've worked on teams, how I've seen other teams operate. And the feedback that I gave them was that it's too much. And the better message is Opengear is an out-of-band network company. That's, I mean, at least that's how they started. And I know they're part of Digi, but that's how they started. What makes more sense to me is if they start focusing more of those use cases where it makes sense for them to leverage those, the ability to run a Docker container or to get a command line, get Linux on a device, bring that into situations where networking is disrupted, because that's the point behind out-of-band networking. Sure, you can use the out-of-band networking from an in-band standpoint, and you can run all your configuration through that. Like that's totally possible, and I'm certain there are organizations that utilize an out-of-band solution while the in-band is still intact. But if we, as practitioners of networking, are saying, here's automation, and here's all the amazing things that automation can do, when do those conversations say, here's what automation can do when things are disrupted? When you're looking at automation today, it's always in band. It's always things are fine. It's we're bringing up a new switch, or we don't trust the junior engineers to have the full command set, so we want to give them some kind of scripted UI where they can make changes, or enable a desktop person to make some changes without giving them the full UI. And there's all of these fanciful, all of these ways that you can put automation to work in band when everything is fine. What about when it's not? That's what I need to start hearing from Opengear. And if they want to run both messages, that's fine. I'm not saying, hey, completely abandon the here's what you can do when things are nominal and when everything's operational. But out of band is really for when stuff is broken. So let's bring the automation out and start focusing on how to use their platform, that ability to run a Docker container when stuff is broken. And that was the message that I gave them in the closed session. They thanked me for it. And I really hope the next time, be it at a field day event, at a trade show, just the next time, maybe not the literal next time, but I really hope that we start seeing some demos that are geared towards that, some messaging that really fits that narrative, because that's, again, I think I've said it 4 times already, that's what out of band to me has always been. This is what you use to fix things when in band is broken. Let's see how you bring automation to that as well. So that felt, I felt like I got a little fired up in that and maybe brought a little more passion than I should have in that, but it's something that I do feel pretty strongly about. So that was the Opengear presentation. Like I said, I always love hearing from them and seeing what they're doing next. I hope to hear some of that messaging in the future. It'd be great. I think it could definitely help them out quite a bit. So I'll be back with another video here. The third presentation was Cisco. The third vendor was Cisco, and they had 4 presentations. So I'll kick off another video here in just a few minutes. do my best to wrap up Cisco and my feelings on all of that. And we'll see you real soon.